Well, so my talk, we're at a computer conference. We're talking computers. The title of my talk is The Art of Being Wrong, which is something we don't often talk about when we're talking about computers. But I'll set it up for you. Who am I? I'm Dave Rupert. I work at a company called Paravel. We're a three-man shop based in Austin, Texas, and we are not hiring. We just we like to be small, and we have no interest in hiring other people. That would ruin the whole fun. Yeah, I work with two of my best friends, Trent Walton and Reagan Ray. Trent Walton, you might know him. He's a handsome gentleman, devilishly handsome, but he also is the kind of guy that you teach him how to do something, and then he goes away for 6 hours, and then he does it better than you did, and so you're like, what happened? I was your Yoda, and now I'm a chump. And Reagan is a beautiful illustrator, designer. We also call him the editor because he's really good at just telling us no to things. So I co-host a podcast, a sound effects podcast that's also about web design and development with Chris Coyer from CSS Tricks. Shop Talk Show is a podcast that sits at the intersection of fart sounds and web design. So if you're interested in that intersection, this is a podcast for you. And I've been working on an app called Day Trip. It's an app that's kind of designed to break the Netflix cycle. I don't know if you're like me and you just sit around and watch Netflix all weekend instead of leaving your house, and then it's midnight and you're like, oops, I ate a whole bag of Fritos. Trying to fix that. So that's it's Austin only for right now, but we're kind of looking to expand as we go on. So talk. The extraordinary pressure of being right all the time. I feel like I'm this woman, you know. You have to choose which tape reel to put in the machine. It's which tape reel do I need to use? It used to be so simple, right? You had 3 tape reels, right? And I just need that tape reel, and they have very defined things that they do. But then, now it's kind of, the landscape looks a little bit more like this, right? And the funny joke here is, that's just from this conference. Yow! And I'm starting to, I'm starting to feel the pressure of I just want to do something simple. I just want to add 2 numbers, but I got all these tape reels. Just like her, I feel like her. I'm trying to figure out what happened. We kind of broke away from simplicity, right? We broke away from and I think everyone feels it in a little way. There's stuff, list of shame stuff you don't know. There's just all this stuff that you have to be right about. I think our jobs kind of depend on us being right. If your boss comes to you and says, which technology do we need for asynchronous communication on real time? And you're like, WebRTC, bro. And so, why do I know that? That's really dumb that I know. Anyway, so we have a lot of stuff to kind of manage, right? And so there's kind of this thing I'm trying to brand. I'm working on a part book called, it's called Borg UX, right? It's just this idea, okay? And I'm kind of begging the question here, but I'm kind of wondering, right? We are the kind of first generation of digital natives, right? You've probably heard that term, and we also sit kind of at the bleeding edge of that. We kind of look at the technologies coming out, and we're like, I'm going to use that tomorrow. This is amazing. We're kind of at the bleeding edge of all this stuff, and I'm sort of started to wonder, when we all contribute to this Borg of knowledge that we're building. Sorry if you don't watch Star Trek. You really should. It's 176 episodes for the next generation. Good starting point. But what if we're all connected to a giant shared source of knowledge, and what if everything in the machine isn't exactly correct? It's interesting because I feel like what happens, right, is just through talking, we have all these kind of facts and must-dos, like I put facts in quotes, think of them as Medium articles or whatever, and must-dos, oh, you must do this to be this guy or girl or human or Borg, cyborg, android, data. Anyway, And I feel like these all get like uploaded and absorbed into the Borg, and they kind of just never leave. They just sort of fester. And so that's led me down a path, and this talk is kind of the last 6 months of my life, like when I shut down the computer at night, like what do I think about in what gives me night sweats and stuff like that? It's this, right? And it's all this stuff. And I'm starting to wonder, I came on this thing. Alan Alda inspired me about this thing called This Idea Must Die. And it actually comes from, I heard it on a podcast, a Freakonomics podcast. Any Freakonomics listeners out there? Woo, solidarity. Let's hang out and talk weird things. This Idea Must Die. And this is a book by a company, or like by a website called edge.org. And they go out and they ask scientists a question. And this last year it was, what idea is hindering progress in science? Like what idea have we kind of collectively bought into, and what are we what's stalling progress in science, which is a really, really big topic. And I am reading the book, but it's like 700 pages of like astrophysics, and I'm just like, man, I wish I had understood a single word of this. But there are some like low-hanging fruit. You know, just an example would be like the idea of left brain, right brain, right? Not real. Only real if you've had a lobotomy. Like, it's not real, but it's something we assume in our collective conscious. We're like, oh, that's, of course, you know, she's artistic, her left brain works, you know, he's very analytical, his right brain works. But it's not true. It's not a fact. But we like present it as a fact as we go along. And I've bought into it, and I've made rational, or now I find out they're irrational decisions based on what kind of brain I thought I had. Alan Alda, in this book and blog and everything, his thing is, what if the idea of true and false in science isn't true, or should just go away? And that's like, whoa, because science is supposed to be true, right? Not everyone, right? That's how I'm like, science is true. If it's not, the world falls over, I think. But he's kind of saying like, we shouldn't, I wonder, and this is just a modest proposal, if scientific truth should be identified in a way that acknowledges that it's something we know and understand for now, and in a certain way. And I feel like this is pretty relevant to the web design community. I feel like we always present ideas like, this is the best way, React, it came out yesterday. It's like, well, for you, and in a certain way it is, but maybe not exactly. You know, and I think we've all seen this happen in science. You know, my favorite example is this. Look at this. Behold, a wonderful pack of brontosauri enjoying a nice dip in the swamp. Boom. Turns out, brontosauruses aren't real. Science killed them. And now, kids' books don't have brontosauruses in them, they have apatosauruses, and they think brontosauruses were maybe just some junior apatosaurus or something. Well, that's upsetting, because that means this scene from my favorite movie ever, Jurassic Park, never happened. You know? Oh. That means that literally never happened. So I'm sad about it. But does science stop there? No. Any moms and dads out there? All right. I'm going to hit you in your heart. My kid watches, my 2-year-old son, Otis, watches a TV show called Dinosaur Train. Dinosaur Train, yeah. Feeling me? All right. Moms and dads, let's talk. All right, so Dinosaur Train, Dr. Scott, the paleontologist, comes on, and he's teaching my son about dinosaurs, you know, and then he casually drops this bomb that dinosaurs had feathers without consulting me. dinosaur, meaning thunder lizard, apparently is just a giant chicken. So, I'm a little upset, because, like, where does it stop, you know? And that's the thing. Science being science, they don't stop. Whoa, what is this freak show? Well, wouldn't you know it? Science grew a dinosaur face on a chicken. They spliced the gene of the chicken's beak, and it came out looking like a dinosaur. Frightening. This is nightmare fuel. It keeps me up at night. Oh my goodness. That's freaky deaky. All right, here we go. So, this idea must die. So I've been interested in this like kind of idea that ideas can expire, but they can also be kind of good for a time. But I also think like we're building up entropy in our big system of ideas and things, but no steam is getting blown off, and it's just going to explode in a nuclear explosion. But so we did an episode of the Shop Talk show called "This Idea Must Die," based on the podcast, based on the book. And we got some good like solicitations. We solicited people's ideas, and there's a lot of like a handful, nine-ish or so ideas that people kind of submitted. Sarah Drasner sent in like 9, but we only took 1. But she's the thought leader. So it's really interesting to kind of think like what UX practice are we holding on to, or what kind of build tool, or what kind of thing that are we holding on to that isn't actually serving us as a community. And I've started kind of deconstructing, like in my brain and my off time, like deconstructing what I know about the web and what like something I like believe in and think is really good. But then I'm like, yeah, but it's I kind of like start breaking down that idea. And since I'm talking about breaking down ideas, like I'm gonna get serious for a second, okay? Serious for a second. Okay, sometimes wrong is wrong. And I don't like this slide, I don't like this guy at all. But, you know, I feel like, you know, I can't stop you from being racist, sexist, or homophobic. But we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Lots of people have suffered for these kinds of thoughts and beliefs, and we don't need to kind of re-engage that and re-traumatize people. I really don't think we need to do that sort of thing. So if you find yourself looking kind of like siding with this guy, we don't need it in tech, so I'd like you to kind of step out. But mostly because we have, this conference is a great example. It's super diverse. I feel like this is one of the most diverse conferences I've been at in recent. And I really appreciate that. And I feel like if we have underrepresented voices, our whole community misses out. So, sorry, Hitler slide. I just Godwin's lawed myself. I apologize. But we don't need to be disruptive here. That's sort of what I'm saying. So, all right, here we go. Carl Sagan. So my coworkers and I were sitting around the office, we're reading Medium blog posts, checking out tweets, and discussing the current election, and we were just thinking, like, the question came up. We were like, how good are humans at detecting bullshit? And so it turns out pretty good at detecting bullshit. I read some psychology papers, like 93% accuracy. Sorry, that was a lie. It's more like 53%. You believe me? Boom! So it's the same as a coin toss. This is wild. So somebody lies to you and it's like, well, makes sense to me. That is just wild to me. So why I want Mr. Trump in my slide deck, not to pick on politics in particular, but I feel like he's a really great manifestation of something I call the Donald Trump effect, which is and I think we have it in tech too. It's this idea that the person who talks the most brazenly and talks the loudest and talks the most often, that somehow we believe they're correct. Isn't that weird? I'm sure you like know these bloggers or these tweeters, and you're just, as long as they talk loud and the most, you're kind of like, oh, they must be right. And what's weird, not to do the Hitler thing again, that's what Hitler has a quote about this thing. Like, if you make the biggest lie and tell it, loud enough and long enough, like, people will eventually believe you. And I'm just like, wow, Hitler's weird. Why? I'm surprised I got on a plane. I Googled Hitler so much. So I was kind of like, how do you kind of defend? Like, if it's a coin toss, right? How do you kind of defend against BS? And Carl Sagan has this thing in this book called The Demon Haunted World, which was written just kind of in this like kind of. It was the book he published just months before he died. But he has this baloney detection kit, and we all know what baloney means here, right? BS, okay. And in the baloney detection kit, there's a lot of things. Like, these are kind of just guidelines, like, I'm not gonna read all of them, you can go Google this, but wherever possible, there must be independent confirmation of the facts. That sounds good, Quantify wherever possible. If there's a chain of argument, every link in the chain must work. That has amazing implications for project managers. Nailed them. Occam's razor is probably one of my favorites. It's just like, let's do the easy one. So yeah, there's also like this collection of logical fallacies, and you've probably all seen that website with the graphics and the chart of all these logical fallacies, like ad hominem and begging the question, which I did earlier. I might do like all of these. Slippery slope, weasel words. These are kind of good ways to kind of suss out, like, did that person just say something dumb? I think my favorite is like charactering, because how often in a tweet you got 140 characters, it's way easier to make your opponent look like a cartoon and just destroy them. You're just like, CSS is bad because it's global. Thanks for drawing a little, I don't know, beach cartoon illustrator. It's like CSS has like a surfboard and no. But I just want some warnings here. Speaking from experience, if you try to be the Carl Sagan in-home baloney detection kit at parties or online, not a good way to be popular, or because it's not cool. It doesn't make you cool. So you have to use tact, a little thing called tact. It's a social skill. You'll learn it eventually. But yeah, it's the people I've encountered who do this really strictly. It's sort of like, oh man, you should leave because you're kind of bumming everything out. But for you and your brain, it's a good way to kind of detect kind of stuff. But one I like that I feel contributes to this conversation is this: try not to get over-attached to a hypothesis just because it's yours. We could substitute a framework or a GitHub repo or a technology just because it's the one you use. It's only a way station in the pursuit of knowledge. Again, kind of what Alan Alda was saying. It's something we understand right now in a certain way. I can't believe I'm talking about Alan Alda, but ask yourself, if you like the idea, compare it fairly with alternatives. If it's your idea, especially if it's your GitHub repo, it's really hard to be a fair judge, because that's your baby. It's like parents, right? My baby's perfect. Your baby's a little weird, but my baby's perfect. That happens all the time. So if you don't, others will. Reject it. And that's probably just how things grow and stuff. But anyhow, I'm kind of interested in what happens. How do we become so wrong? Gonna need some audio here. Realized. Okay, but no, I say this because Chris on the slide here, Chris, we have a podcast, a weekly podcast where we cover just a little bit of hot drama. I feel like we have an insider's perspective on how to be instantaneously wrong. And it's something I like to call the hot drama trap. Okay, and this is almost like a guaranteed way to appear on our show in some context, because we will probably cite a tweet or something of yours, and the way to do that is very simply have a really strong opinion about a really niche topic. And I'm not dissuading opinions, but ooh man, it's just when you're like don't use the last semicolon on a CSS definition because you'll optimize it for like one more byte. Man, you're wrong. Like, that super doesn't matter. But then it can, there can be like other, popular implications. I mean, what do we got going now? Sass versus post-CSS. Whoa. Or probably more controversially, Sass versus all caps Sass. Holy God, if you spell that wrong, you hear about it. Oh man. All right, icon fonts versus SVG sprites, and one I think is better, but one was also good for a time. So, and people are maybe still stuck in that time, and we got to kind of let them be that. Cascading style sheets versus React inline styles. Oh, CSS is dead, they said. What about hamburger menus versus I've never seen anyone post a viable alternative? I mean, yeah, hamburger menus are bad, period. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Or my favorite is probably like progressive enhancement versus any modern web design practice basically. Nice. I don't know. It's just like, it's always at odds, right? So what I'm kind of getting at is strong opinions are great, but they can create kind of a blind spot in how you view technology. And I think we need to kind of be aware that it does create a blind spot. And Chris Quare has a really good post called The Great Gray Ghost that I call home, which, spooky, could be about this boat, which was called The Gray Ghost, haunted. So Chris, being a medium for a specter, discussions are always worth having. Weighing an option is always interesting. Demonstrating what has worked and what hasn't for you is always useful. There are ways to communicate that don't resort to dogmatism. Dogism. So, Chris, the gray. The gray. Upgrade. So I know what you're saying. You're like, it's not all gray. I'm a scientist. What does the data say? Right? Does anyone know who this guy is? Anyone? This is Robert McNamara. He's like an old guy. This is the black and white photo. He's passed away. But he's like a very data-driven guy. He was like an economist before economists kind of existed, right? He's like data. He was very smart, went to Berkeley. He was heralded like as a whiz kid in the newspaper. Like if a newspaper is like, whiz kid, Robert McNamara, hey, here, get the newspaper. Like that would be a really cool thing if somebody called me a whiz kid in the newspaper. I'd probably hold on to that. He's a hero. He helped stop the Nazis in World War II. Wow, he was president of Ford Motor Company for a while and like president of the World Bank. But what he's probably most known for is a really bad sort of thing. He was Secretary of Defense for Kennedy and Johnson during the Vietnam War. Whoa. So Robert McNamara, a very data-driven guy, like I said. In World War II, he kind of took, the US was having a problem. Like planes were going over to bomb the Nazis. Again, why am I talking about Nazis again? All right. What happened, Dave? This is my first talk to have Nazis. Anyway, and so planes were going over, to get the Nazis, and they noticed like 1 out of every 5 planes would just hop on back. Like the pilots would say like, oh, my shoe came untied, or I got sick, or I don't know, the steering wheel was kind of weird. But what was really happening is they were just getting scared, and they were abandoning the mission. And so they realized this. They collected all the data, and they realized that. And they kind of were like, so first thing, the general or whatever, I think it was Army, so the general of the Army will be in the first plane on the bombing run. And anyone else who, like, if you abandon the bombing run, you will be court-martialed. That was kind of the solution. Massive success, which is kind of cool because, like, imagine, like, you're a team of, like, I don't know, 10 developers, and you're like, let's go build a website, and 2 people are like, cool, going on break. You'd be kind of like, hey, nah. But there's a really good, there's a really good documentary, The Fog of War. Who's seen this? Anyone? Yeah. Robert McNamara, he kind of gives 10 or 11 lessons he's learned about war, and it's a really weird and honest, like, picture. I mean, this guy had a job to do, right? Like, we have a Secretary of Defense in America. They have to do a job. But what's interesting is he has all these kind of rules, like get the data and be prepared to re-examine. But what happened was he was so blinded during the Vietnam War. He was keeping all these stats like engagements, abandonments, deaths, kills, kind of like collecting all this data. And from his point of view, we had, we killed 3 million North Vietnamese. Wow. We killed 3 million North Vietnamese, but we had only lost, at the time he ended up leaving office, like 25,000 US soldiers. We ended up losing about 50,000 all said and done, trying to get out of there. But, so on paper, we killed more bad guys, so therefore we're winning, so we're the best. But that's not how it played out, right? What they didn't understand is the North Vietnamese were fighting for their freedom. And their freedom just so happened to be a communist government. But we were so blindsided by the fact that they were communists, oh, bad guys, that we couldn't really see what the truth was. And so there's kind of out of that is this thing called McNamara's fallacy, which is this idea that you measure only what can be measured, right? So I'm going to go through this McNamara's fallacy. It's 4 steps, and we're going to kind of talk and examine each one along the way. The first step is to measure whatever can be easily measured. This is okay as far as it goes, right? We probably measure things. What does everyone measure, right? Kilobytes, seconds to onload, DOM content loaded. We measure these things, and that's okay as far as it goes, right? The second step is to disregard that which cannot be easily measured or to give it an arbitrary quantitative value. This is artificial and misleading. I'll just give you the cliff notes here. That's like literally what speed index is. It's an artificial quantitative value. The third step is to presume that which can't be measured easily really isn't important. This is blindness. Maybe you say like, oh, you can't really measure user intent or user emotion, so it just doesn't matter. The fourth step is to say that which can't be measured easily really doesn't exist. So if you just kind of say like, oh, the user's emotional state doesn't matter, or like how they feel about the website or how it looks, that doesn't matter, you've committed, I don't know, factual suicide or so. And this is from a book in 1972. And I kind of come back to this, and the reason I put it in here, I don't want you to go back to your office and be like, let's stop analytics, let's rip it out. I don't think that's it. But I feel like we are kind of chasing metrics, right? Like, and we've probably all been in the situation where, your boss storms in the room and is like, new metric today, clicks. We're tracking clicks, number 1, go get them. And you're like, what? Like, how does that mean anything? Or you've been in the situation where like one thing kind of changes the whole direction of the whole project because you're kind of chasing this one metric. And so I'd like to show you the pinnacle of modern web design, my website, using the latest and critical CSS technologies. here we go. Here's a demonstration. You'll see the website loads, and you like click around, and then you see it. Oh, that's good. I call this the herk jerk of critical path rendering, and that it's not a good experience. Like it's fine for like a first page load on 3G, it like renders beautifully, but like if you like click more than one page on my website, it's bad. It's like heebie-jeebie bad. There are ways around this. You set a cookie to detect the first time the user visits the website, and then if the cookie is not true on the second time, then you reorganize the whole entire web page. So it kind of looks like this, right? Like you detect the user's first load, and you make a really weird website, but if they've loaded it before, then you just give them a normal website. So now I'm in the business of like managing state for a static blog about fart sounds and web pages. I don't know, it's just not sitting right with me. And that's not to say, like, you should stop doing it. I will actually prescribe this for all my clients, like, but I'm just, it's like, have we messed up? Is this idea whole? But, you know, we're graded on it by Google. PageSpeed Insights grades you on this. So you're gonna have to perform and jump through a bunch of hoops, you know? Who does A/B testing at their work? Yeah? A/B testing's good, but do you ever sort of feel like A/B testing is just giving a user two turds and saying like, which turd do you like the most? I'll choose left turd. Okay, left turd, ship it. User still gets a turd. It's okay, but man, I wish there was something better, you know? And like stats can be fudged, right? Like they you know, one thing that's true on one site doesn't mean it's true on your site, right? What if I told you you can increase your conversion rate by 22% right now? Who wants that? 22% more monies? Heck yeah. Come to my website.
Maybe you need me or one of my fellow actors to appear like this on your website to speak to your website visitors. This is a great option if you don't want to use valuable page space for an embedded video. But to be effective, your message needs to be spot on.
22%. It's that easy. So that's the thing. Conversions doesn't always equal good, right? But maybe the money is the priority. But maybe you like burn through all of your user goodwill because they've had to watch this dude walk out on your website 22 times just to buy like, I don't know, buy Twinkies that they can deep fry or something. So so that's the thing, is I'm very interested in this idea must die thing, you know, and I realized as I've kind of like gone down this, you know, trail of thought, you know, I think I need to allow myself and others to be wrong. Sorry about the Sarah Palin joke, but that's actually Tina Fey. Who's read Bossy Pants by Tina Fey? It's one of my favorite books. It changed my life. You're laughing, but it actually did. It was kind of revolutionary. Just in the book, Tina kind of highlights how to do improv, you know, and it kind of changed my life. And so now my kind of new open source philosophy is yes, and let's go. So that's kind of the rule of improv. You don't shut somebody down. You say yes, and then and let's figure out a new thing. You can kind of move the discussion further. And because I would spend so much time, I have like pull requests from like the day after I launched a repo like 5 years ago, because I was like, I don't know if I want this, or I don't like it, or something, or I don't know. My like default state was no, you know, and I think that's kind of the default state of the internet is like, F you, impress me. But that's a Jason Santamaria quote. It's really good. He uses the four-letter word version, and it's really good. But I've started to say, like, I shouldn't have that default state of no. I should be like, yes, and maybe I'll have a question, or maybe And are there other implications? I want to kind of start fostering a discussion, right? And that's also what I've been kind of doing in my spare time too, with blogging. The ancient art of expressing your feelings. Who has a blog? Anyone who has a blog or Medium or something? Yeah. Who's made one post this year? Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I kind of went back and I tracked all my posts from 2009 when I started this iteration of my blog. 2009, 10, pretty good. But 2015, I've actually doubled the amount of blog posts I've made into 20 whole blog posts, y'all. And then I have a drafts folder with like 17 more, just kind of ideas that I want to write about and share. And I am the, I think somebody said it in the panel earlier, but I am the like quintessential, I will write a thesis and present it in factual information and you will not be able to argue it because it will be logically sound. And I've had to break up with that idea of myself, basically. And I've had to say, like, you know, I have these ideas and it's gonna take way too long to like, whatever, make a college thesis out of them every time. So I just need to start putting ideas down and sharing them. And then, you know, some ideas will float, some will sink, that's fine. But I need to kind of allow myself to kind of make mistakes in blogging. Cap Watkins, does anyone know who Cap Watkins is? He's a design leader at BuzzFeed. And he has this amazing blog, and he was on Developer Tea. Yeah, Developer Tea? Okay, he was on Developer Tea and mentioned that he considers his blog a documentation of his thoughts. And I thought that was a really good term for a blog. It's how you document your thoughts. It's how you share. He has this really great blog post, The Boring Designer. I encourage you to read it. This is the best post I've read on web design probably the last 2 years. And it's the best post I've read. So I'm glad he shared it. I'm glad he shared his thoughts. And then Jeremy Keith on Twitter, not talking to Cap Watkins, he's actually quoting the Incredible Hulk, I believe. He says, "That's my secret, Cap. I'm always publishing. Seriously, though, treat your blog as your drafts folder." And I thought that's really cool. We all have these ideas of things we'd like to post, but we kind of like make these mountains out of these ideas. And it's really just treat it as your drafts folder. Just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. So I did that. I did something cool. I made a code pen. I turned a code pen into a universal Windows 10 app, which means it works on a Windows phone, a Windows tablet, phablet, it works on a Windows desktop PC, it works on an Xbox, even works on a hologram face shield. You can turn a code pen into a hologram. Bitchin'. But, you know, I'm just like, this is awesome. This is like the most awesome thing you can do in web design, you know? I'm like, dude, so I made a little video, told some jokes, I spilled whiskey on my desk. Not the greatest production, but, you know, and then, you know what happened? I posted it on the internet, and then, do you see what's wrong? See what's wrong? Some jag downvoted it. And I don't care, like, but I do care. Like, what's wrong with this person? Like, I did a feat of strength. It's like I ripped a phone book in half, and then the guy's like, I don't understand. Why? Why is there even a downvote button? But it's just, maybe it wasn't the best, but it was like kind of okay. 9 people thought it was kind of okay. I don't like it. You know, it reminds me of the classic XKCD comic. And where it's like, are you coming to bed? I can't, this is important. What? Someone's wrong on the internet. I gotta fix it. I feel like this happens all the time. I mean, like, I don't know, have you ever tweeted something with a typo? Oh my God, you're gonna hear about it. And if you try to delete the tweet, somebody who refreshes Twitter every 6 seconds will tell you they saw 2 tweets from you of the same content. Ugh. Why do we do this? I do this. Why? I don't understand. Why do we have to like one up somebody or be right all the freaking time? I think that's a disease that we have, you know? And I mean, I think it's a disease, and it's kind of serious, like, because it has like cascading effects. I mean, I think we're all pretty, familiar with the "well, actually" meme of men mansplaining things. I was alerted to this thing very recently, and I'm going to share it with you guys. Circle of trust. Is that fine? I was alerted to this thing. A woman speaker casually mentioned, when she speaks, she will present something and, give a talk, and then every time she leaves the stage, there's a man there waiting to tell her she's said something wrong. And I was just like, wow, what a dick. That's probably a one-off, right? Next woman speaker, yeah, same thing happened to me. Every woman speaker I've talked to says, yes, that's happened to me. It's like a disease that we have. And I only say this because, again, back to the women and minorities, like in tech, like that's harsh. I mean, imagine if every time you did something, somebody was like, well, actually, your dog's name isn't Sam, it's Sam. Because they're getting corrected on things that are facts to them. Like my dog's name is Sam. Oh, no, I think it's Sam. Why? It's weird, okay? And I'm just alerting you to this weird trend that's happening. And stop it if it's you. And the thing is, just shut your mouth. Right? Sorry, okay. I'm a dad, code dad here, shut your mouth. It's just, we don't have to be right all the time. And we can let people be wrong, and that's okay. They'll figure it out. I mean, if they keep doing the Hitler lie thing and saying it bigger and bigger and louder, maybe it's time to engage in a discussion. But that's the thing. Promote better discussions. Don't fight people on their dog's name. We have to communally value good discussions. And if we don't, we will value trash and bullshit, So here's an argument I would like to make. Parallax is dumb. I win. Tweet. This is not good, right? I'm just saying X is bad. I mean, this is better. I am of the opinion that parallax is dumb. So you've gone from uploading a fact into our Borg to uploading an opinion, right? And that's much easier for people to digest or ignore. But when it's a fact, it's like, oh God, it's a fact. I have to remember the fact. But even still, parallax is dumb doesn't say, that's not an argument. You're just saying something's bad. I don't like it. So I'm of the opinion that parallax is a waste of time and resources in order to achieve an effect that users are already immune to and has terrible scrolling performance in a multi-device world. Now that's an argument. That's actually 3 arguments. And first one, it's a waste of time and resources. You can fight me on that. Maybe it takes you 10 seconds to do a parallax thing. All right, I lost that one. But it doesn't. It takes you 4 days. It takes you 4 days. It takes you 4 days to I don't know. The thing about parallax, right, it's the thing's shooting in. It's why would you trigger the human lizard brain to react, It's our innate instinct is to move, leave things that are shooting at you. But yeah, we do it all the time. To achieve an effect that users are already immune to. Everyone I know is immune to this thing. They're not ooh, look, it's like a window on the web page. No one says that. And then it's scrolling performance on a multi-device web. If you've ever used a parallax website on an iPad, you know what I'm talking about. So these are good, better discussions that we can have, right? It's now we can have a discussion. And that's what I want to kind of impart, is I want us to have better, healthier discussions. In the age of Twitter's ruining discussions. Twitter's actually a really horrible conversation platform. Have you ever tried to have a conversation on Twitter? It's I think this, and somebody's like, no, that's cool. Have you thought about this? And you're like, yes. And then somebody jumps in and is like, I'm the evil overlord. I fart and poop, and you're dumb. And you're just like, oh, I didn't ask for your opinion. I never wanted you to jump in on my conversation. Hop-ons, we call them. never warned you there. But I want to have better discussions. I want us to kind of like promote that and value that. I think if we value the bullshit, we're going to get bullshit. If we value, you know, if we just value short arguments that don't make sense, we get short arguments that don't make sense uploaded into our collective Borg. So we need to kind of have really good discussions. And so that's kind of what I'm leaving with. I really didn't know how to kind of wrap up, you know, the like final, ooh, go get your slides. So I just said, go forward and fight Nazis, right? We just got to get out there, go fight the Nazis. And that's only to say, like let's if we're going to exist in a collective Borg of knowledge, let's exist in a really good one. So that's it. Thank you very much.